Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we're taking a look at everyone's favorite Supreme Isthmus, and I think we need to have a talk right here, because today's match was apparently what was described as, quote-unquote, a cheese fest, and I had a little bit of time to think about it this morning. A wonderful Thanksgiving morning. I hope everybody else's Thanksgiving was wonderful. This will be coming out, let me think about it, the day after Thanksgiving, so feel free to regale me in the comment section with what you had for Thanksgiving dinner, how your Thanksgiving went. And otherwise, if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, let me know how your Thursday afternoon was, I guess. Anyways, what is a cheese in Beyond All Reason, right? We need to have this conversation about what constitutes a cheese, because Supreme Isthmus, there is effectively one strategy, and the strategy revolves around spawning on this geothermal spot, right like our red commander has, and going for something like, for instance, a Zar. We've seen the Incinerator, we've seen Mammoths, basically all of these high-end late-game units, these late T2 units, just trying to push them out faster than usual. But, and there's a big but, it's basically the standard at this point, so it's not really a cheese at this point, it's more of a meta, and essentially anybody should be expecting to see a T2 on the field around about the 8 to 10 minute mark from that geothermal spot on the other side of the map. So is it really a cheese if you know it's a cheese, or is it a cheese simply because you're trying to go faster than anybody else? In that case, is Sonic the cheesiest character there is? I don't know. It's a tough call to make, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump into this game after posing this very deep theoretical question to you, my lovely viewer. Now, anyway, all that said and done, spawning right here in the geothermal spot as the Red Armada commander, a commander, of course, that goes by the name of Duffy. Duffy going to be playing here as a, Armada, which is interesting, and going into a geothermal here. We don't see Armada very often, so I'm curious what exactly Duffy is going to be going into. You know, it'd be cool to see, rather than a Zar Rush or a Incinerator or Mammoth or something like that, going for sharpshooters. An early, like, 2 sharpshooters, and you can transport them too, so you can drop them to the front line really quickly. Get them out there before the Mammoth or the Incinerator or the Zar, any of those heavier units gets out there, and then suddenly you've got this wonderful way of getting your, well, 1, you counter that build, and 2, you can break down basically any static defense that exists up there. Be a cool build to see. Spawning on the other side is the green commander in the geothermal spot. Well, definitely unfamiliar with the build order here, the standard build order anyway. It's going to be Cam Cam. Cam Cam clocking in at 17 open skill here, and missing 2 of these metal extractors is a bit of a blunder. That's an extra couple hundred of metal at this point in the game. At 2 minutes and 35 seconds, every single second these pull in 2 metal per second and 2.3 metal per second. You're going to be losing out on a lot of metal, so I'm glad to see we are going to eventually be pushing those out. It's just a little bit of a late start right here for Cam Cam. Our blue commander on the front line is going to be Ball, the god of murder, I believe. It's a D&D reference. Ball is. Well, I don't know. It probably Ball itself is probably a reference to something else, but that's where I know Ball from. Is the god of murder, and is one of the, what is it? The Dead 3. I believe that's their reference, their calling card. Anyway. Speaking of the Dead 3, Ball now being blasted to death right here by the light laser, going to eventually pull the commander back, but my goodness, 40-ish%, 44% left on that commander's HP bar is not great. Yeah, we got a huge army of pawns moving forward right here as well. Okay, so this is more or less what we're looking at, the standard of Beyond All Reason, the standard of Supreme Isthmus going up against a non-standard build order here, so the blue team may be unfamiliar or just trying to play something a little bit different right here, whereas the red team going for the established meta of the grunt spam based off of the reclaim from the front line. So you can see Resbot on the front here, reclaiming a whole bunch of metal and pushing out units left, right, and center, but also, this is from the midline player, right? So Flacca usually would take a more laid-back approach, would usually go for something a little bit less aggressive. Instead, putting units on the field, using that metal, and managing to do a huge amount of damage, aggressing across the map. Now we are losing it. Oh, we have Legion in this game too. Wonderful. Didn't even know about that. That's a fun little tidbit for you. I guess an Incinerator Rush would have been possible at this point. Now Resbot's eating up these units, and one of the things that's interesting about the early game units is that I feel like with Resbots, because these early units are so cheap, I feel like resurrecting them might be worthwhile, more worthwhile than, for instance, just reclaiming the metal. At the very least, at the end of the day, you can always reclaim the bots once they've been resurrected for their full value, so you get a little bit more metal out of it. Or, of course, you can always just go ahead and use those units to try and take back your front line. Barbar, the pink commander, though, has done a wonderful job of pushing forward. Ball finally has some aggravators out on the field. Ugh. Very late to the battle here, though, and Barbar already has a massive advantage, going to start trying to repair this LLT on the front line, but having a really rough time of it. One of the issues that you run into when you play the same meta, the same standard over and over and over again, is obviously people are going to start predicting what you've done, right? You're gonna start to be fairly well documented exactly what you've been up to. Looks like we do have the red commander, by the way, going for an advanced geothermal, so we're going to go straight up to that T2 geothermal production plant. Produces 1,250 energy, but also, of course, costs quite a lot of metal and energy itself to build, and then also very explosive, so have to be very careful about this. The question I have is, what are we going to go into afterwards? Are we just going to spam out T1 units? We're 5 minutes into the game at this point, so very, very ahead of schedule as far as this T2 lab comes up. Looks like Peanut Buttery, the yellow commander, yeah, not going into any tech whatsoever, instead dumping their entire economy into the red commander. Makes sense why this was so quick here. Usually we don't see a T2 lab until about the 6-minute mark, and indeed we'll see the T2 lab just barely starting up here for the green commander, but for the red commander, that T2 lab has already been up for a little while, and now the T2 mechs is coming online are going to be a huge boost to the metal income. As soon as Peanut Buttery can help, well, basically this entire game actually, Peanut Buttery helping the red commander by going ahead and giving out tons and tons of metal to make sure all these mexes and whatnot come up and online very quickly. While that's happening, obviously it means the economy is growing exponentially, right? Bar is a game about exponential growth, so the quicker you get your economy up and running, the quicker overall everything is going to start scaling. Means this red economy is off to a lightning start so far. Advanced E-converters coming up here as well. Advanced metal extractors should definitely be prioritized here, though. Well, then again, overflowing the energy isn't ideal either. Handing it to team is useful in some respects, but it's definitely not ideal. Converting it into metal and handing that to the team might be a little bit more useful. Microphone spazzing out on me. Frontline has deteriorated to a wasteland, right? We're just set up in that good old-fashioned stalemate that we know and love from Supreme Isthmus beyond all reason. It's the trademark of Supreme Isthmus, but it's definitely not. It's not your standard. It's not your standard standoff here between these two commanders, because we do have extremely quick T2 rolling out of the back here. We are going to have that T2 lab rebuilt right now. It looks like we rebuilt the T2 lab and are going to go ahead and decommission it to build a fusion reactor right here, trying to stimulate that energy economy. The yellow commander also dumping tons of energy into this. Love the teamwork right here. So this is teamwork versus memework. The blue team just going ahead and building... Oh, okay. Mosquitoes. Interesting. The Legion T1 gunships, they fire a little tracking missile. Pretty powerful, I would say. It does a decent amount of damage, but also it does have the massive drawback of the fact that it just isn't very fast and doesn't have very much HP. It's worth considering that, because obviously when you go in for the attack, you need to know exactly how many gunships you need for whatever attack you're doing. And mosquitoes you definitely take quite a few of. Nothing going on the front lines right here. It looks like there's a little bit of a battle going on, but those destroyers are happy to fire away at long range against those frigates from the Lavender commander and to the Maroon commander. We also have a submarine making its way around right now. Going to try and snipe some of these metal extractors. Nicely done. The Green commander, Baby Oil, trying to keep an eye out for any opportunities available. There are destroyers, though. Once those destroyers get within range, this is going to be tricky. Oh my goodness, we've gone all the way to a T3 lab. Well, I'll be. The yellow commander now transporting a T2 con back to the backline here in order to get these mexes up and running. I think stealing stealing a construction tower here, a build tower, wouldn't be the worst idea, just to help amplify the rate at which those units are being scaled. Not bad whatsoever. This is definitely a greedy build, but I like it actually, because one of the things about Supreme Isthmus is that typically, oh, by the way, we have the mosquitoes finally pulled on the front line here. Finally, somebody getting aggressive on the fronts. If there's one thing I don't appreciate about Supreme Isthmus, it's that nearly every time, basically any game you play, the front line is going to devolve into this sort of war. Not necessarily the worst thing, and definitely an easier learning experience than, for instance, a big open battlefield where you have to keep track of multiple different angles and things all at the same time, but it does mean that sometimes when these front lines stall out, especially with the static defenses and whatnot, this can turn into a very stalematey war right here. Oh. Centurions and planes shot down right there by the fighters from the Cyan commander. Booza has managed to shut them down nicely right there. Oh, and look at that. The tank commander actually tapping out of the game at this point. Interesting. Okay. Looks like, yeah, unwilling to continue the fight as all of those planes have gone down. Peanut Buttery going to inherit the front line right here. We do have a frontline air lab. Interesting. Definitely some choice strategies coming out right here from these commanders. I imagine this game wasn't ranked because Legion was enabled. Sometimes it will be left on, and that's always fun to play. But a lot of the times Legion is enabled and ranked gets disabled. Not the end of the world here, but it does mean that this front line is in a lot of trouble now. Yeah, the Zar has made its way out to the field before any units from the T3 rush from the red team have come out. A T3 rush is pretty impressive. That's not something we see very often. Typically T2. This could have been a very quick T2, and again, like I was saying, early sharpshooters could have been an interesting way to play this, because obviously those sharpshooters can click away against the Zar very easily. It only takes 2 or 3 shots from a sharpshooter in order to kill a Zar, essentially shutting down that super heavy tank very, very effectively. Not the case, though. In this specific instance, it's going to be a bunch of Marauder out the lab right now. Marauder obviously very cheap at 970 metal, just barely more expensive than a Bull, but they have quite a lot of firepower tucked within their twin cannons and their little accelerator fins. They're very, very powerful and dangerous to deal with, especially if you're only just barely getting into T2 and you don't really have the resources for it. That Zar getting so much value against these naval units, actually, connecting in a big way against all of them. The Zar continuing to fire away too and smashing the T1 forces, my goodness. Loads of T1 stuff, all dying in unison right here. The Zar has so much AoE on that attack that it really can't be contested by big swaths of T1 units like normally you're trying to produce in the early game here. Nicely done. That army is cleaned up, and that Zar is the center crown of this composition right now. Marauder do make their way out into the water at this point, and they're Marauder in the water, and they're going to be making their way across. Not sure exactly what we're going to be trying to kill with these. We also have some Martyr, so we have some Marauder in the water and some Martyr flying overhead. Trying to get smarter. It's a little forced, isn't it? Martyr are a suicide drone. They're basically just a drone with a little explosive package that they ram head first into the enemy, so as the fighter planes shoot them down, they'll disable that charge mid-air, but as they connect, where are they headed? There we go. As they connect, you can see detonating on impact with whatever they collide with. Not the end of the world right here for Flacco. Loses a little bit of build power, which definitely stings, but again, not the most egregious of losses here. Did you see Marauders? The blue commander says, wait a second. Did you see Marauders? Indeed he did. Marauder popping up out of the water, and Cam is in position. Oh, nice positioning there from Cam. Well, a little slow on the D-guns, though. Cam does go down, takes down 2 of the Marauder, but still 4 more make their way out of the water and into the base of the green commander. Nice splits right there. One of the Marauder peeled off. It looks like we'll sacrifice 2 Marauder, in fact, in order to kill this AGO. No, we're just going to use 1. I like it. No reason to give up more of those than possible. Advanced Geo pops and, of course, takes out the entire green base that was set up to produce that 1 Zar and has now been reduced to smithereens. Marauder now in the backline, ready to tear apart the blue facilities. And they need to start working. Those Marauder are very expensive. It's an expensive investment. We do have Razorback coming out now, and we have one was handed over to the yellow commander. I don't know if he knows that. Marauder losing a little bit of focus here. Yeah, definitely feels like they're being pulled away in different directions and not really focused on what the most valuable frontline pieces should be. Obviously difficult to do without scouting. Yeah, there's the fighters are pulled in order to clear out a whole bunch of this airspace and those Mosquito gunships as well. Marauder just looking for whatever angle they can find. At this point, going to be swimming their way underwater, trying to pop up wherever they can. Yeah, they're having a hard time right now. They're set to attack those metal extractors, but can't really do it until they're completely outside of the water. They're completely stepped out of the water there. At this point, I can't help but wonder if going for a Prude would be a good investment. Obviously spares your entire base from obliteration should this Geo be bombed. Then again, I guess if you're going up against a Legion air player, you're not really worried about bombers. The only bombers that Legion have access to are those Martyr in the early game, and so that does mean that, for the most part, they can't really take down big single targets very effectively. There is a caveat there that the Martyr are very difficult to shut down in swarms. Without early flak, they're very, very difficult to deal with. And so that does mean that oftentimes they can find surprising value against single targets, but that's not mainly the way that I would think about using them. Sometimes I like to, one of the easiest ways I like to use them is just to go ahead and use them to snipe individual early T1 metal extractors. Ball flings the D-gun but gets shot down for it as the cloak is revealed, and the Strider are blasted to pieces here as well. Yeah, this front line is in a load of hurt. The sharpshooter's now firing away here, brings down one of the Razorbacks, but the two remain still. I think we need to go kill that base. Razorbacks are so powerful, but they really need to be used in the right context here. I appreciate that we're not fighting the sharpshooters head-on anymore. We're just going to keep running right on past them. We do have a big old Navy clash over here as well. Looks like the laboratory in a bunch of trouble as the platypus continue laser blasting down all of the units over here. Depth charges being launched as well, trying to connect with whatever they can. A messy battle for the green and orange commanders on the Navy as well, but the Razorback on the front line is doing its work. Sharpshooters trying to tear it apart right here, but struggling a little bit. Yeah. Razorback just needs to pop that laboratory here. Gonna go after the Zar. Not a bad idea. Zar does fall. But so too does the Razorback. Meanwhile, the other Razorbacks were shut down. Eventually, the commander here in Seafoam Green managed to de-gun down one of them, but one of the Razorbacks made it through, managing to kill the T2 laboratory, which is very annoying. Resbot's going to be produced en masse to try and solve that issue, as meanwhile we also have a little bit of aggression coming forward right here, but nothing that a couple of Marauder can't clean up. I like this play right here. Yeah, I think I like this play from the red team, or the red player and the red team in general. Going for a whole bunch of T3 really quickly in the game, trying to escalate this as quick as possible, but obviously the other issue you have, the other issue that you have is giving these T3 to the enemy team means that suddenly you've handed over thousands and thousands of metal worth of units. Oh, with its dying shot, that thug managed to kill the sharpshooter. Very nicely done. That's a record-breaking, a record-breaking push right there. Oh, the shotgun transport has been sent out on the front lines. Not bad whatsoever. Bar. Could go for the D-gun right here. Try and D-gun down that shotgun transport, but it's not going to happen. Boom goes the commander on the front lines right there. An excellent little snipe as that shotgun transport manages to obliterate any hope of that commander's moving forward in this game. Marauder once more moving forward over here. We have not really anything to shut Marauder down over here. One of the few things that's exceptionally effective at killing Marauder are landmines. Sometimes what we'll see is a commander will ping the ever-living snot out of the ocean despite not having anything in position or any resources to do anything with. One of the things that we see is people mining this side of the map really, really heavily. So one of the things that I notice is oftentimes when commanders sweep through here, they tend to take pathways along the sides right here or right here. So I think probably the best bet is to heavily mine this section of the map and this section of the map, and then maybe put medium mines in this mid-section right here, because usually commanders will like to walk their heavier units along the sides to try and keep them safe, try and avoid any static defenses as well. In this case, not so much a big deal because the Marauder are facing essentially a T1 defense. And they're obviously more than happy to push forward. Good fight, mate. No lab gaming. Pretty hilarious, because I don't think I saw a lab right here for the green commander. I believe that was just a bunch of build power. Duffy OP indeed, as now the Red Marauder move forward, and the purple commander does have a stellar economy on the back of this, it's worth pointing out. We also have, of course, these stronghold gunships, the heavy transport shotgun gunships. They actually do a huge amount of damage. They're really, really effective. There's some sharpshooters firing away right here as well, doing a lovely job of blasting down a whole bunch of these Marauder, but the Marauder get on top of them, and it is going to be a tale as old as time, as the Marauder are clicked to pieces right there by the sharpshooters. Nicely done. Yeah, those Marauders probably could have committed to the aggression right here up this hill and into the purple base, but at the end of the day, actually didn't manage to do all too much damage whatsoever. Not bad. The Red Navy has been given a chance to rebuild for some reason. Looks like we've gone, or we are going up to T2 right here for Rose 23. Trying to get her T3 or T2 laboratory up and running, but has paid a tremendous sum of metal to the other side of the map. And of course, leaving that metal on the other side of the map means now there's a massive navy headed directly in their direction. Yeah. This is a tricky situation, because suddenly you've switched off all your production in favor of trying to go for T2. But now it means that there's hundreds of frigates, or hundreds of metal worth of frigates, headed towards your side of the map. It's the age-old counterattack of the high seas, and you have to be very well aware of it. Giving up metal on your enemy side of the map can be devastating to yourself in the long run. The Red Commander without really much economic investment, though. So this was essentially starting off your economy as strong as possible, but not investing very long-term, and so it means these T3 units are slowly petering out as T3 comes online. The red team has the advantage for now, but as the blue economy continues to scale, and you can sort of see it. Oh wow, Rose actually tapping out of the game at this point. Leaves the game in frustration and says, "You know what? I've been beat. No sense in playing any further. As you can see, the blue team is closing that gap between the energy production here, and as that gap continues to close, it's going to be more and more in the favor here of the blue team, because that energy advantage does start to make up the difference very, very quickly. That being said, Razorbacks in the front, tearing apart Sheldon and Sumo and a whole bunch of fiends and grunts and goblins, all sorts of stuff like that. Not ideal, not really where you want to keep these units at. Here's a big counterattack, though. Marauder stabbing in the back here of the red team, going to pop up on the shoreline of the orange commander, devastating a whole bunch of the title production as well as a whole bunch of the E-converters, which is cool to see. Razorback sent over in this direction to defend. Means Marauder are concentrated for the D-gun, the beautiful D-guns right there from the orange commander. Babamba manages to D-gun down 5 of those Marauders, shutting down their power significantly, cutting their numbers by more than half and reducing their ability to do much damage on this coastline. Now, we do have to be careful. They're not quite done yet, and Babamba still needs to be in position. These Marauder aren't going to retreat. They just need to reposition, and so the orange commander needs to move into position here. Ooh, trying to get a D-gun. Ooh. Just barely misses the D-gun. Didn't have the energy to launch it. Now it means these Marauder have actually ended up becoming much bigger of an issue than previously expected. Razorback's cleaning up the Marauder over here for the purple commander. But these Marauder and purple on the southern side are doing a wonderful job of tearing this apart. Yeah, Marauder accidentally stepped too close to the Razorback right there, and so they will be blasted apart. Ooh, just barely. D-gun wipes out that Marauder, but the orange base has been annihilated. Definitely a huge hit to the economy right there for the orange commander. We do have Cam standing in front right here, trying his very best to make sure that there's no more incursion of Marauder headed over in this direction. We do have the Marauders moving underfoot, and also we have one of these lunkhead heavy hover tanks. We actually have a couple of them moving out of the labs here for the purple commander. We need some kind of investment. At this point in the game, I think disassembling the T3 lab and building an advanced fusion reactor, switching this to a Prude, maybe, and then building an advanced well, I guess if you're going to build one, you might as well build the other. But anyways, building an advanced fusion reactor with the metal for this experimental gantry wouldn't be the worst idea, because, yeah, okay, there we go. We're going to build another fusion reactor. You really do need to start stepping up the economy here. You're moving into the late game at this point. The game hasn't been over quick enough that you can necessarily hold on. Oh. And as if to highlight the point, the blue team apparently crushed in the morale as they throw in the towel right here, and the red team manages to take the victory. I really didn't expect it. With the counterattacks that were coming through with the lunkhead production just barely coming online, I thought the blue team might have stuck in it, but apparently not. The red team destroying their will to fight with that overwhelming T3 early game rush and managing to steal the victory. Duffy indeed producing the most resources, as was the most well-fed in the early game, and you can see just how exponential that growth is here. Fed a little bit of resources early on, and that scaling just continued throughout the entire rest of the game. Thanks a ton for watching if you did make it this far. I sure hope you enjoyed, and I sure hope to see you in the very next game. Whoops, accidentally tabbed out to the replays, but I sure hope to see you in the very next match. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you then. Peace out, everybody.